Welcome champs to English Kapotli and I am Abhijit Rakshit. You see today I am going to give a lesson of NCERT class 12 Flamingo, the first lesson, okay, of prose. And the name of the lesson is The Last Lesson. Actually champs, साइंस आर्ट्स कॉमर्स जो कुछ भी है वट एवर द स्ट्रीम यू हैव टेकन, आप सभी ने जो कुछ भी स्ट्रीम लिया है, लेकिन इंग्लिश पढ़ना जरूरी है बिकॉज इंग्लिश इज कंपल्सरी. आप सभी को इंग्लिश पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. एंड देखिएगा, साइंस आर्ट्स कॉमर्स पढ़ने का बाद लिटरेचर पढ़ने का एक आनंद अलग ही होता है. यू विल जस्ट लाइक इट. लिटरेचर एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जिसे पढ़ने में बहुत मजा आता है. चलिए आज और ज्यादा बात नहीं करके, कम ऑन लेट अस प्रोसीड विद द फर्स्ट लेसन ऑफ फ्लेमिंगो एंड द नेम ऑफ द लेसन इज द लास्ट लेसन. ओके चैम्प्स, चलो शुरू करते हैं. द लास्ट लेसन, इट इज द फर्स्ट लेसन ऑफ प्रोज ऑफ फ्लेमिंगो. इट इज रिटन बाय अल्फांसो डॉडेट. अल्फांसो डॉडेट वाज अ फ्रेंच नॉवेलिस्ट and a short story writer. The last lesson is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War. जब प्रूशिया फ्रांस को कैप्चर किया था इन द ईयर 1870 से 1871 तक, तब का बारे में दिस लेसन इज रिटन अबाउट, इन विच फ्रांस वाज डिफीटेड बाय प्रूशिया लेड बाय बिस्मार्क. Prussia then consisted of what now are the nations of Germany, Poland and parts of Austria. In this story, the French district of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. Come on, let us proceed with the lesson. In this lesson, you will find a small child who was unwilling to go to the school because today he was going to be asked about participles. आज उसे स्कूल में participles का बारे में पूछा जाएगा, लेकिन ये बंदा जो था, इसे participles का बारे में कोई पता ही नहीं था. He was not at all prepared. इस जो छोटा सा बच्चा है, इसका नाम है फ्रांस. फ्रांस को स्कूल जाने का मन नहीं था, फिर भी सुबह सुबह स्कूल जाता है. और अनफॉर्चुनेटली आज का जो स्कूल का सिचुएशन था वो कुछ डिफरेंट था, बिकॉज इन द स्कूल टुडे मेनी विलेजर्स वर आल्सो सिटिंग. आज स्कूल में बहुत सारा विलेजर्स भी बैठा हुआ था. उसे लग रहा था कि भाई ये विलेजर्स क्यों बैठा हुआ है. बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली दैट वाज हिज लास्ट लेसन, बिकॉज फ्रॉम टुमारो ऑनवर्ड्स, उस दिन का बाद से स्कूल में और फ्रेंच का लेसन नहीं लिया जाएगा. फ्रेंड्स, दिस इज द लास्ट लेसन. तो हियर इज द टाइटल, द लास्ट लेसन. उसका बाद से और स्कूल में फ्रेंच क्लासेस विल बी नॉट देयर. एंड ही वाज वेरी डिप्रेस्ड कि मैंने तो फ्रेंच का बारे में कुछ सीखा ही नहीं. तो आज अगर क्लास लेसन हो जाता है तो मैं फ्रेंच का बारे में कहां से सीखूंगा. And his teacher, Mr. M. Hamel, he was also very depressed. वो भी आज बहुत डिप्रेस था क्योंकि उनका भी आज लास्ट क्लास था, because from tomorrow onwards a new teacher will come and French will not be taught here. ये देखिए, लैंग्वेज plays a very vital role. कोई भी कंट्री अगर किसी दूसरे का हाथ में जाता है, जैसे कि अभी इन दिस स्टोरी प्रूशिया हैज कैप्चर्ड फ्रांस, फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट डे ऑनवर्ड्स French will not be there. Means French will not be taught in the schools of France. So this is the story. See, come on. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread. You know what is the meaning of dread? Dread का मतलब क्या है? Dread मतलब डर रहा था. जो छोटा बच्चा था वो डर रहा था of a scolding. Especially because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. आज उन लोगों का participle का बारे में क्लास लेने वाला था. And I did not know the first word about them. और ये जो बच्चा था उसे the first word about them माने participles का बारे में कुछ भी नॉलेज नहीं था. For a moment I thought of running away and spending the days out of doors. तो ये छोटा बच्चा पहले सोचा कि चलो भाई आज स्कूल नहीं जाते हैं, स्कूल नहीं जाके लेट मी स्पेंड द डे आउट ऑफ डोर्स, बाहर में ही आज स्पेंड करते. इट वॉज सो वार्म, सो ब्राइट. मीन्स यू सी देर आर सो मेनी अट्रैक्टिव थिंग्स वेर देयर. द स्मॉल चाइल्ड वॉज गेटिंग अट्रैक्टेड बाय ऑल दिस थिंग्स. जैसे कि क्या क्या थिंग्स उसे अट्रैक्ट करता है. द बर्ड्स वेर चर्पिंग एट द एज ऑफ द वुड्स एंड इन द ओपन फील्ड बैक ऑफ द सॉमिल द प्रूशियन सोल्जर्स वेर ड्रिलिंग. यू सी द प्रूशियन सोल्जर्स, उन लोग को ड्रिलिंग कर रहा था. दैट मीन्स दे वर डूइंग देयर प्रैक्टिसिंग. इट वॉज ऑल मच मोर टेम्पटिंग देन द रूल ऑफ पार्टिसिपल्स. तो बच्चा किस चीज से टेम्पटेड होता है? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द बर्ड्स वर chirping at the edge of the woods and the open field back of the sawmill. वहां पर प्रूशियन सोल्जर्स अपना ड्रिलिंग ऑपरेशंस कर रहा था. And this were much more attractive than the rule of participles. But I had the strength to resist. लेकिन anyhow I resisted these all, means I tolerated and hurried off to the school. फिर भी मैं स्कूल चला जाता हूं. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in the front of the bulletin board. तो जब मैं टाउन हॉल पास करता हूं तो वहां पर मुझे कुछ एक नोटिस टंगा हुआ मिलता है इन द बुलेटिन बोर्ड. सी, तब का जमाने में हमारा जैसा इंटरनेट, देन ऑल दिस न्यूज़पेपर्स, अगर न्यूज़पेपर्स है भी तो वेरी फ्यू पीपल यूज टू स्टडी, और उतना होता भी नहीं था. तो वट एवर द न्यूज द गवर्नमेंट यूज टू गिव, ये इस तरह का बुलेटिन बोर्ड होता हुआ करता था. मीन्स दिस इज जस्ट लाइक अ नोटिस बोर्ड का जैसा होता है. For the last 2 years of our bad news had come from there. पिछला 2 साल से जितना भी बैड न्यूज आ रहा था इस बुलेटिन बोर्ड का तरफ इस बुलेटिन बोर्ड से आ रहा था. The lost battles, the draft, the orders of the commanding officer, तो all this news they were getting. And I thought to myself without stopping, What can be the matter now? तो मैं सोच रहा था कि भाई आज कौन सा न्यूज है? What is the news today? What can be the matter now? आज क्या हो गया? Then as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith Watcher who was there with his apprentice reading the bulletin called after me. तो वो जो blacksmith था उसने मुझे बुलाया, Watcher. Don't go so fast, bub. You will get to your school in plenty of time. भाई इतना जल्दबाजी का कोई जरूरत नहीं है. Don't be in a hurry, bub. तो आपको स्कूल जाने के लिए काफी समय है. क्यों? क्योंकि वो blacksmith has already read the news in the bulletin board कि from tomorrow onwards, कल से और फ्रेंच नहीं पढ़ाया जाएगा. तो ये बंदे को पता था कि कल से फ्रेंच पढ़ाया नहीं जाएगा. तो इसीलिए इसने इस बच्चे को कहा, भाई डोंट हैव टू हरी, जाओ धीरे आराम से स्कूल जाओ. आई थॉट ही वॉज मेकिंग फन ऑफ मी. देन ये बच्चा सोचता है शायद ये मजाक कर रहा है. एंड रीच्ड एमहैमल्स लिटिल गार्डन आउट ऑफ ब्रेथ. You know what is the meaning of out of breath? This means very tired. Usually when school began, there was a great bustle, means there was a great noise which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better. And the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. कभी देखते हो ना टीचर्स अपना स्केल लेके ऐसा ऐसा करके बेंच में ठोकते रहते हैं. कम ऑन क्लास बी साइलेंट, ऐसा करके कुछ टीचर्स होता है जो बेंच में ऐसा करके रूलर लेके मारते रहते हैं. तो हम लोगों को बहुत डर भी लग जाता है, यार भाई यार कहीं पर ये रूलर पीठ का ऊपर ना गिर जाए. ओके कम ऑन, चलो चलते हैं. That means see, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. But now it was all so still. लेकिन आज कोई भी आवाज नहीं है. Very silent today. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. तो मैं धीरे धीरे करके अपना डेस्क का तरफ गया. But of course that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. लेकिन उस दिन नॉर्मल डे का जैसा नहीं था. It was as if स्कूल छुट्टी है, as if it is a Sunday morning. Through the window, I saw my classmates read already in their places, and Emhamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. तो मुझे तो डर लग रहा है क्या भाई Emhamel means मेरा टीचर ना मुझे डांट दे. Whether I may get scolding from my teacher. डर तो लग रहा था. सारा क्लास बैठा रहता है, and if you reach your classroom late, तो फिर चैम्प्स कैसा लगता है उस समय में. भाई मैं जब स्कूल में था मुझे बहुत डर भी लगता था और आई यूज टू फील वेरी अशेम्ड, शर्म भी लगता था यार. क्लास में लेट में पहुंचना रिडिकुलस, बहुत बेकार लगता है. तो ये बच्चा को भी बहुत खराब लग रहा है. आई हैड टू ओपन द डोर एंड गो इन बिफोर एवरीबडी. You can imagine how I blushed. I was ashamed. Blushed means मुझे शर्म लग रहा था. And how frightened I was means I was very afraid also. But nothing happened. लेकिन उस दिन कुछ अलग ही माहौल था. Nothing, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. Nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." हम लोगों आपके बिना ही क्लास शुरू करने वाले थे. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright. उसका बाद I got a little over my fright. मुझे मेरा डर थोड़ा कम हुआ. Means I got relieved. Then I see that my teacher had on its beautiful green coat. लेकिन आज थोड़ा डिफरेंट था. एम हैमल नॉर्मली जैसा whatever the dress used to wear, आज थोड़ा डिफरेंट था. He was wearing beautiful green coat. See, these all things you have to note. His frill shirt ऐसा होता है. And the little black silk cap. तो उस दिन वो सिल्क का कैप पहना हुआ था, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. इस तरह का ड्रेस वो नॉर्मली नहीं पहनते थे. इंस्पेक्शन और प्राइज डे का दिन he used to wear. Beside, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. Solemn means very serious, very sad. But the thing that surprised me most was to see at the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat. तो ये बूढ़ा आदमी था. This is a old man. Old Hauser was there. He was wearing his three-cornered hat. तो उनका three-corner hat था. The former mayor, the former postmaster, okay, and several other besides. बहुत जन भी और काफी बहुत जन थे. Everybody looked sad. तो सभी बहुत दुखी थे. Everybody was very sad. सभी दुखी थे. And Hauser had brought an old primer. Okay, primer means these are the word books. इसमें spellings रहता है. तो this is a old primer. Thumbed at the edges. और edges थोड़ा मुड़ा हुआ था. वो बार-बार हाथ से दबा के वो पढ़ रहा था. And he held in its open on his knees with great spectacles lying across the pages. और चश्मा भी पहना हुआ था. While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted his chair. तो मैं ये सब का बारे में सोच ही रहा था. I was just thinking of all these things. तो मैंने देखा कि M. Hamel mounted his chair and in the same grave, he was very serious. Grave means serious. And gentle tone which he had used to me said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alaska and Lorraine. See, from tomorrow onwards और French नहीं सिखाया जाएगा. Only German will be taught in the schools. The new master comes tomorrow. कल से नया मास्टर आएगा. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. आज आपका ये last French lesson है. आप लोगों कृपा करके थोड़ा attention से पढ़िए. See, this is quite depressing. ये थोड़ा दुखदायक है. एक टीचर के लिए this is quite depressing कि आज उनका last lesson है. कल से और वो पढ़ा नहीं पाएंगे. This is very depressing. What a thunderclap these words were to me. मेरे लिए तो ये thunderclap का जैसा हो गया. It is as if a thunderclap. मानो मेरे लिए ये कोई बिजली गिरने का समान. Thunderclap का मतलब है as if there is a thunder. Oh, the wretches. That was what they had put up at the town hall. अब फ्रांस को पता चलता है कि बुलेटिन बोर्ड में यही न्यूज का बारे में चपका हुआ था. मीन्स दिस न्यूज वाज पेस्टेड ओवर देयर. माय लास्ट फ्रेंच लेसन. तो ये बच्चा बहुत मायूस हो जाते. वेरी बिकम्स वेरी डिप्रेस्ड. व्हाई आई हार्डली न्यू हाउ टू राइट. अरे मुझे तो लिखना तक ठीक से नहीं आता. मैं खाली लिखना सीखा हूं अभी. आई शुड नेवर लर्न एनी मोर. आई मस्ट स्टॉप देयर देन. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds eggs or going sliding on the Sahar. तो मैंने मेरा टाइम कितना वेस्ट किया. देखिए, टाइम कभी वेस्ट नहीं करना चाहिए चैंप. यू शुड नॉट वेस्ट योर टाइम. कभी कुछ भी हो सकता है. टाइम इज वेरी मच वाइटल. ओके, तो ये बच्चा अपना टाइम वेस्ट किया था. एंड ही हैज नॉट बीन एबल टू learn French properly. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago. तो मेरे लिए मेरा बुक्स इट वॉज वेरी प्रॉब्लमेटिक, मेरे लिए एक प्रॉब्लम लग रहा था, बोझा लग रहा था. ओके, सो हेवी टू कैरी. सी दिस बुक्स वेर सो हेवी टू, मेरे लिए कितना भारी लग रहा था. माई ग्रामर, तो मेरा ग्रामर बुक एंड माई हिस्ट्री ऑफ द सेंट्स वेर ओल्ड फ्रेंड्स नाउ. ये मेरा पुराना दोस्त बन के रह गया. दैट आई कुड नॉट गिव अप, बट आई डोंट वॉन्ट टू गिव अप. मुझे फ्रेंच नहीं छोड़ना है. And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. He was a very bit cranky, थोड़ा cranky था. Cranky means थोड़ा पागल था. Poor man, it was in honor of his last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood. तो इसी कारण today he has worn his special Sunday clothes. Today, now I understood this one. Why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. तो अब उसे सब क्लियर हो जाता है कि why these village people are sitting in the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. इन लोगों को भी आज खराब लग रहा था कि they have also not been able to go to school. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. So they wanted to give respect to their country. From tomorrow onwards, French will be not taught. कल से और French नहीं सिखाया जाएगा. That is why they wanted to show respect for the country that was theirs no more. See, while I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participles all through, very loud and clear and without one mistake? यहाँ बोल रहा था मैं बहुत कोशिश किया था. I tried so that I will be able to recite the rule of participles. Very loudly and clearly. मैं loudly और clearly से बोलना चाहता था, and that too without mistake. But you know what happened? But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there. पहला word में मैं mix up हो गया था. Means in the first word only I got mixed up. I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. I was very much scared, I was afraid, and I was not having that courage to look up. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, but I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. हर दिन हम लोगों ने यही कहते हैं कि भाई कल करेंगे, कल वो काम करेंगे, कल मैथ्स करेंगे, कल हिस्ट्री पढ़ेंगे, कल सिविक्स पढ़ेंगे, कल फिजिक्स पढ़ेंगे. वी ऑलवेज ट्राई टू पुट आवर वर्क फॉर टुमारो. लेकिन ये कल, ये टुमारो कभी नहीं आता है. वट एवर यू वॉन्ट टू डू, यू शुड डू टूडे ओनली. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैम्प्स. आज ही करना है. ठीक है, कम ऑन. नाउ दोज फेलोज आउट देयर विल हैव द राइट टू से टू यू. Those fellows out there means ये कौन है? Who is this person? Those fellows का मतलब है the Prussians out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretended to be Frenchman and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? भाई तुम कैसे अपने आप को Frenchman बोलते हो? How can you tell that you are a Frenchman? आपको तो लिखना पढ़ना कुछ नहीं आता है फ्रेंच में. यू कैनॉट राइट एंड यू कैनॉट रीड ऑल्सो. बट यू आर नॉट द वर्स्ट पुअर लिटिल फ्रांस. वी हैव ऑल a great deal of reproach ourselves with. Reproach means disappointment. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. You see, your parents were also not very anxious कि मेरा बेटा या मेरा बेटी पढ़ाई सीखे. They preferred to put you to work on a farm. आपका पेरेंट्स आपको कोई भी काम में एंगेज कर देते थे. मीन्स योर पेरेंट्स यूज्ड टू एंगेज यू ऑल टू वर्क इन द फार्म और एट द मिल्स so as to have a little more money. See, actually इन लोगों का इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन भी शायद खराब था. That is why they were not able to send the children to the schools and they preferred sending them to work so that they will be able to earn something. And if I have been to blame also. See, M. Hamel is very honest. So he is accepting this one, that I am also to be blamed. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? When I wanted to go for a fishing, जब मुझे मछली पकड़ने जाना था, then I used to give you all a holiday. तो I am also to be blamed. Then for one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world and the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Because when people are enslaved, language plays a very vital role. जब किसी people को enslave किया जाता है, means when they are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, जब तक अपना language को अपना साथ में रखता है, it is as if they had the key to their prison. Means if you are not able to forget your language, हो सकता है कि foreign जो countries है, they will try to dominate you, they will try to impose their language on you. See, we Indians, even though Britishers were there, हम लोग उनको इंग्लिश सिखाया, बट वी हैव नॉट फॉरगॉटन आवर ओन मदर टंग, हिंदी, बंगाली एंड वट एवर द मदर टंग वी हैव नॉट फॉरगॉटन. इवन वी हैव लर्न इंग्लिश, हम लोगों ने इंग्लिश सीखा, बट हमारा मदर टंग को हम लोगों ने कभी नहीं भूले. वी हैव नॉट फॉरगॉटन आवर मदर टंग. फॉलोड. तो दैट इज व्हाई यू सी द ब्रिटिशर्स आर नॉट एबल टू स्टे. हमारा साथ ज्यादा दिन रह नहीं पाया. दे हैव टू लिव. देन यू ओपन द ग्रामर एंड रीड अस our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully. लेकिन आज क्या हो रहा था? I was able to read everything. आज मुझे सब समझ में आ रहा था. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully. शायद मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था, मीन्स मुझे ऐसा फील हो रहा था that previously I were not so much attentive to my studies. I was not giving that much of attention, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away. आज एक ही दिन में he wanted to give all the lessons in a single day at one stroke. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day M. Hamel had new copies for us written in a beautiful round hand. France, alas, France, alas. तो ऐसा करके कॉपी में लिखा हुआ था. ओके, मीन्स द नेम ऑफ द प्लेस एंड द नेम ऑफ द कंट्री. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desk. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. एक ही sound आ रहा था. There was only one sound. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew. तो beetles क्लास का अंदर आ गया था. But nobody paid any attention to them. Not even the littlest ones. Means छोटा छोटा जो बच्चा था, small children were there. They were also not paying any attention to the beetles, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks. On the roof, the pigeons cooed. The pigeons were making sound very low. That day, the pigeons were also making low sounds. Okay? And I thought to myself, तो मैं सोच रहा था कि will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? क्या कल ये जो pigeons है, ये सब क्या कल जर्मनी में सिंग करेगा? Whether all these pigeons will sing in Germany, in German language. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair. तो I was looking at M. Hamel, मैं M. Hamel को देख रहा था. He appeared to be very disturbed, restless. आज उनका मन उदास था. At one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little classroom. आज he was looking at everything, हर चीज को देख रहा था. फोटोग्राफ का जैसा अपना माइंड में रखने का कोशिश कर रहा था. Just like he wanted to take snaps of each and everything. because from tomorrow he will not be there. कल से इस स्कूल में, इस क्लासरूम में he will not be there. He will be no longer the teacher of this school. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. 40 long years he was teaching in this school. 40 साल से इस स्कूल में he was teaching. Okay, but from tomorrow onwards, he will not be able to teach. 40 saal. It's a very long time. With his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. Just like that. Only the desk and benches had been worn smooth. तो see, wear and tear का कारण benches में थोड़ा बदलाव आया था. The walnut trees in the garden were taller. Walnut trees जो था वो थोड़ा लंबा हो गया था. And the hop vine and that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. There is a vine, means a climber was there and it has twined about the windows to the roof. Roof tak chad gaya tha. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks. See, kal to chala jana hai na, they have to go. So that is why they were packing their trunks. His sister was packing the trunks. For they must leave the country the next day. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their Babi Bibo Bow. Down there on the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. तो हॉसर भी अपना प्राइमर खोल के बच्चे लोगों का साथ सब एक साथ चिल्ला चिल्ला के स्पेलिंग कर रहा था. He was spelling the words. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. तो ये हॉसर को देख के सही में मजा आ रहा था. This old man was chanting with the babies. हंसी भी लग रहा था, फन भी लग रहा था, लेकिन दुख भी है. Because from tomorrow no longer French will be there. Okay. How well I remember it. That last lesson. So this is the title of the story. Okay. So this is very perfect because this is the last lesson, because from tomorrow onwards, means from next day onwards, French was not going to be taught in the school and only German will be taught. So that is why this title is very much appropriate. All at once the church clock struck 12. Then the Angelus. Angelus is a special prayer which is recited by the Catholics 3 times a day at 6 a.m. noon, means now this prayer was there 12 o'clock, and 6 p.m. So and is accompanied by the ringing of the Angelus bell. तो ये चर्च में 3 टाइम बेल बजता है. 3 times the bell is rung at 6 a.m., at noon and at 6 p.m. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussian returning from drill sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up very pale. He appeared to be very sad. Pale means he appeared very sad. I never saw him look so tall. My friends, said he. You see, he was stumbling. Because he has become so emotional. He was stumbling. But something choked him. See, something has choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Vive la France, means long live France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hands. School is dismissed. You may go. So here comes the end of the lesson. Now you see, champs, I have given some probable questions and answer for this lesson, and this one you will get in my description box. I have shared the link in my drive. You can download it. Now I am showing you the questions and answers. Just let us see. What was the atmosphere like in the classroom on the last day of school? The atmosphere in the classroom on the last day of the school was tense and somber. The students were subdued, means silent, and M. Hamel, the teacher, was serious and sad. What were the reasons for Fran's tardiness on the last day of school? Tardiness means why he was unwilling, means why he disliked going on the last day of the school. Franz was tardy on the last day of school because he had been outside with his friends, dawdling and playing instead of hurrying to class. How did Franz feel about his French lessons before the last day of school, and how did his feelings change? Before the last day of school, Franz had taken his French lessons for granted and had often found them boring. तो उसे बहुत खराब लग रहा था. He used to feel bored. However, on the last day, he realized the value of language and regretted not paying more attention. Okay. How did Franz react when he realized that it was his French lesson? तब उसे कैसा लगा कि जब उसे पता चला कि आज हमारा last lesson है. When Franz realized that it was his last French lesson, he was filled with regret and sadness. He wished he had paid more attention to his studies and not wasted time. वो पछता रहा था और बहुत दुखी था और वो सोच रहा था कि that he should have given more attention to his studies and he should not have wasted time. What was the significance of M. Hamel's last lesson for the students? M. Hamel's last lesson was significant because it taught the students the importance of the language and culture. उस दिन उन लोगों को सिखाया जाता है कि आपका लैंग्वेज और कल्चर का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है, इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ द लैंग्वेज एंड कल्चर. इट मेड देम रियलाइज दैट दे हैड टेकन देयर एजुकेशन फॉर ग्रांटेड एंड दे नीडेड टू बी प्राउड ऑफ देयर हेरिटेज. What did M. Hamel teach the students in his last lesson? In his last lesson, M. Hamel taught the students about the history and importance of French language. He emphasized it was the duty of the students to preserve and honor their language and culture. Next one. Why did M. Hamel say that French language was the most beautiful language in the world? M. Hamel said that French language was the most beautiful language in the world because it was rich in history and culture. He believed that it was the duty of the French people to preserve and cherish their language and culture. Okay. Next one. What was importance of education according to M. Hamel? According to M. Hamel, education was important because it enabled people to preserve their language and culture. अगर education रहेगा, then only will be able to preserve your language and culture. तभी आपका language और culture को आप preserve करके रख सकेंगे. He believed that it was the duty of every citizen to educate it and to value their heritage. दूसरा question है, how did the villagers react to the new Prussian rule and how did this affect their attitude towards their own language and culture? देखिए, villagers reacted with sadness, सभी दुखी था, and despair to the new Prussian rule. They felt that their language and culture were being threatened. Means their language is at the verge of destruction. And they began to appreciate their heritage more deeply. See, next one. What was the message that the author wanted to convey through the story? The message that the author wanted to convey through the story was that it is important to appreciate and value one's language and culture. The story showed how a young boy's attitude changed when he realized the importance of his education and heritage and how it is never too late to learn and appreciate the things that makes us unique. Okay, champs. I think you have understood the lesson. आप सभी को शायद ये लेसन समझ में आ गया होगा. साइंस, आर्ट्स, कॉमर्स, कुछ भी पढ़िए. लिटरेचर इज वेरी एंजॉइंग. व्हेनेवर यू फील बोर, जब भी आपको अच्छा नहीं लगेगा साइंस और आर्ट्स, कॉमर्स पढ़ने का बाद, इसको खोलिए और पढ़िए. इट विल बी वेरी मच एनर्जाइजिंग. बहुत मजा आएगा एंड योर फुल बॉडी विल बी फिल्ड अप विथ एनर्जी. मजा आएगा. You will enjoy this one. Okay, champs, come on, do your studies well. और कभी भी नेगेटिव नहीं सोचना. You know that you are the best. सुबह उठ के ये बात जरूर कहना कि I am the best. I can do everything. मुझसे होगा, मैं कर सकूंगा. आप सभी बेस्ट है. You will be able to do anything. You can go to any corner. You can rise any heights. Okay, champs, today up to here. I will be there with the next lessons. Okay, come on, see my videos and read the literature very properly. Okay, bye today and have a good day. और मस्ती करना, enjoyment, खेल कूद सब कुछ होता रहेगा. Okay, bye champs, have a good day.